How's it going, everyone? Joey here, and it's time to talk about Metroid Prime 4, mainly because a rumor has been circling the interwebs about how big this game is going to be. I mean, like, literally the size of it. It's apparently not going to be an open world game, perhaps, but it will have large areas to explore. This information was put out there on an Xbox podcast, of all places, more specifically from the Xbox Era podcast, where the co-founder of Xbox Era, Nick Baker, went on to talk about something he's heard about Metroid Prime 4 from somebody who's seen the game in action. GamingBolt.com also reported on this story, so I'm just going to read an excerpt from their article about it, as it briefly summarizes what he said perfectly. In addition to the game looking visually unbelievable, said source also claims that Metroid Prime 4 will also feature big, massive areas. Baker says that though he doesn't believe the game is going to be open world, it will have significantly larger areas than previous titles in the series. According to Baker, the person seeing the game in action apparently said that the size of the environments reminded them of Halo Infinite's big and open environments, though Halo Infinite really was open world, of course. So I guess that's why this information came out on an Xbox podcast, because they compared it to Halo Infinite, stuff like that. But if you're wondering how good Nick Baker's track record is, my colleague Jake looked up his reports on Reddit, and so far nothing he said about other games in the past have been confirmed or deconfirmed, other than him saying Mortal Kombat 12 would be announced at the PlayStation Showcase, and that definitely didn't happen. But he did successfully predict the name of Lego 2K Drive, so I guess that's something. Yeah, his track record isn't the greatest right now. I don't know if it'll ever be, so if you're taking this rumor with a grain of salt, I don't blame you one bit. However, even if what he's saying is completely made up, I don't exactly disbelieve it, because I always thought, even before Metroid Prime 4 was even announced, that the next Metroid game would feature bigger environments to explore. Not exactly in the open world sense. I'll get to the open world debate later, but given that it's been so long since we've had a new Metroid Prime game, there have been so many other games since then that have taken the 3D Metroidvania concept and adapted it into the modern gaming landscape. The first games I think of off the top of my head are the new Tomb Raider games. Those are always what I imagined in my head when I thought, what could a new Metroid game be like, a new Metroid Prime game? And I always go back to those games. Honestly, those games are Metroidvania. There's really no debate about it. Lara Croft goes through this adventure, and when she gets new items, she can go back to places she's visited before and access areas she couldn't have before. And the environments in those games were quite huge. Not in like an open world sense, but they were bigger than most of the environments we've seen in a Metroid Prime game. Maybe not as much in the 2013 Tomb Raider game, but in the sequels Rise of the Tomb Raider and Shadow of the Tomb Raider, you got some big environments to explore there that almost seemed open world, but weren't quite. Also in Shadow of the Tomb Raider, there were NPCs to talk to that would give you side missions, stuff like that. I'm not saying Metroid Prime 4 is going to have that, but maybe it would have environments so big, but not too big to where the game is just massively open world. Of course, the Xbox Era podcast cited Halo Infinite as what they thought of when they saw Metroid Prime 4 gameplay, if they really did see Metroid Prime 4 gameplay. And you know, I do see what they mean by that. Halo Infinite is open world, but it also seems fairly divided. It's been a while since I've played the Halo Infinite campaign, so I'm trying to remember what I've seen, but each section you were thrown into as the story progressed felt like its own section, even if it was connected through a gigantic open world. Even then, I can't picture what Metroid Prime 4 would look like with that kind of open world style. There wasn't a whole lot of exploration in Halo Infinite. Rather, it wasn't focused on exploration. It was focused largely on combat and taking bases. The closest comparison I can make to how Halo Infinite looks is how the Talon overworld looks in Metroid Prime Remastered, which looked absolutely stunning. So imagine that, but bigger. I could totally see that. And that's another thing about this rumor. It states that the game is visually unbelievable, which, after seeing how Metroid Prime Remastered looks, I believe that those visuals are visually unbelievable. I don't think the rumor said anything about a next-gen Switch or seeing this run on a next-gen Switch. If what they say is true and they saw development footage of it, maybe it was running on a PC for all I know. But after seeing what Retro was capable of doing on current Switch hardware, I have no doubt that Prime 4 is going to be one of the best, if not the best looking game on Switch, or even Switch 2 if there is going to be some cross-gen play there. Although if some of the rooms in this game are going to be huge, I call them rooms like in a development term, but they're going to be like outdoor areas more than likely, then I really wonder how this game would run on a standard Switch if it's going to be collecting so much data in these gigantic rooms. But that's just pure speculation at this point, because the fact of the matter is, all we have of Metroid Prime 4 is a JPEG and another JPEG. I really am dying to see what this game looks like, my goodness. But do I believe this rumor? I don't know if I believe the rumor itself, but I do believe, like, even if this rumor wasn't even a thing and I'm just talking about what I wish for Metroid Prime 4, I totally believe that the game is going to have larger areas to explore. It's still not going to be an open world game, but you know, between the corridors and such, between the small little areas, between areas, I still think there will be some massive areas to explore, not in an overwhelming sense, but in a grandiose sort of way. Like Talon Overworld, for example, you look at that place and it looks grand, it looks majestic, but in reality, it's actually a pretty small area. Same with the Chozo Ruins and same with Phendrana Drifts. They definitely give off a sense of scale when you first enter them, but in reality, they're not that huge. Now imagine if the same thing were to happen in Prime 4, you enter these big ol' areas, they look big, and they also are big. Truthfully though, I'd be happy if they were only like maybe twice as big as Phendrana Drifts or twice as big as Talon Overworld. I don't need my Metroid games to be exactly huge, but if they find a way to do that while also making it fun to explore, making it fun to do what Metroid games do, and that is just go off and explore and find gear that lets you unlock areas you couldn't have accessed before, then I'm totally fine with that. Now to briefly address the open world debate that's been happening in the Metroid community, because there actually is one. I've seen a lot of people say Metroid Prime 4 should be open world. I don't exactly agree with that. Am I open, pun intended, to an open world Metroid game? I'm open to that idea, of course, yes, as long as they find a way to make it work with the Metroidvania style. But for the past 35, almost 40 years, Metroid has always been about corridor-based gameplay. They've gotten bigger and better with the Prime series, and I just want to see that style continue in Metroid Prime 4. I understand the argument that maybe they would have to shake up the Metroid Prime formula to get more people into the series, because historically Metroid hasn't been that big of a seller for Nintendo, but I just don't know if making it open world is the way to do that. And even just looking at the re-release of Metroid Prime with the Metroid Prime Remaster, that game is currently the 3rd highest rated game of the year on Metacritic, and it changed virtually nothing about the original experience except for the controls and the graphics. The game is still largely the same as it was in 2002, and people still love it. It sold over 1 million units in just under 2 months with no pre-release marketing, so I feel like keeping that general structure alive for Metroid Prime 4 would behoove Nintendo, as well as giving it that marketing push that it needs before release. I'm not saying there aren't changes they can make. They can definitely incorporate some stuff to make backtracking more easy, and even though they modernized the controls, there are some things I wasn't too fond of, like how you switch weapons and how you activate the super missiles. They should definitely take some notes on how to fix stuff there, but as it is, I think for Prime 4 they need to stick to their roots. I think making the game still corridor-based as Metroid games have been is the best way to go about it, but if you want to appeal to those open world fans or just fans of games that have large environments, making some of those areas quite a bit bigger than they've been in previous Metroid games, I think it's a great way to maybe introduce the idea of an open world Metroid game if that's the route they're going to go for. But you know, of course, the argument that open world's the antithesis of Metroid, it just wouldn't work in that genre. I don't know if I want to just lock Metroid into that box for the rest of its life, but as it is, Metroid Prime 4, a game I've been waiting for since 2007. I just want it to stick to its roots, give me corridor-based gameplay, and if some of the areas are bigger, fine by me, as long as they're still fun to explore and solve puzzles in. But what do you think of this rumor? Let me know in the comments below. Is it real? Is it fake? Do you not care if Metroid Prime 4 is open world or not? Let me know. Until next time, bye-bye.